Welcome to episode 17 of the Expert Cruise Show. I'm Chris, he's Anthony, and we're here every week as your guide through what could be a shared obsession and passion for ocean liners, cruise ships, and all things cruising. And Anthony, you've just come back from a cruise on a ship that's very special to your heart.
Well, it's the ship that goes from my local port, and it's the ship that we only go on because I have two young kids and they need the Royal Caribbean experience, which, as you know, these ships are kind of laden with fun things to do, from water slides and mini golf to, they don't do anything organized. My kids, they just won't go to kids club, which is really annoying. Oh, sure. Because it's free and it's kids club is like open till 10 p.m. So you really can like offload the kids if you want to, but my kids, they just won't go. And so they swim, and I don't even have to watch them now. They've just got old enough that they're able to kind of do quite a lot by themselves. But, this is why I like Royal Caribbean, because they have great lifeguards who are always on duty. They do their thing where they stand and they scan the pool. I thought they were looking for people drowning. It turns out they're looking for fluids and foreign objects and floating turds and things like that. But so yeah, we went on the Navigator of the Seas, which it's quite an old ship now, isn't it? What is it, like 22 years old?
2002, I think, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
she's a Voyager Class.
Right, so 138,000 tons, big ship, and she got a full amplification from Royal Caribbean that cost, a couple of $100 million back in 2019. She just had a dry dock in, I think it was November 2024, maybe. So, she's in really good condition. And as we often say on these shows, the older ships, they really are like classic cruising. You get a proper promenade deck. All of the things that you want are where you should expect to find them. And it's a lovely ship, and it's really kind of holding its own.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it as being considered as sort of an older ship, because that Voyager Class was so groundbreaking. Yeah. And actually, I've been writing for my Substack about Royal Caribbean and about the first ever ship, the Song of Norway, which was, again, a groundbreaking ship. And then if you look at their fleet, pretty much every class of ships they've had since the very beginning has pushed the boundaries in some way or another. They were formed back at the stage where many of the cruise lines were just trying to use old ocean liners to build a cruising itinerary around. And Royal Caribbean said, look, we're going to build new ships. We're going to invest in 3 new ships. And the Song of Norway was the first one. And it, introduced things like the open pool deck and the Viking Crown Lounge on the funnel. And then if you look at the way that was sort of popularized, then you ended up with the Song of America, which had the big round lounge around its funnel, which then led to the Sovereign Class, which then led to the Vision Class, and each one of those sort of pushed the boundaries even further. So they're a pretty groundbreaking and very important line when it comes to how we cruise today.
And as a company, Royal Caribbean obviously is the parent company, so it has the RCL has the Royal Caribbean brand, but it also has Celebrity, which is it's like kind of upscale brand, and so I am loyal to Celebrity and to Royal Caribbean, and they do a loyalty match so that you really can kind of get the points. And so this time my mum came along, my wife's godmother came along, so there was actually 6 of us. And the thing that I recommend, because I've stayed in various parts of the ship now, and the thing about this Voyager Class, and possibly, they have 4 Voyager Class ships, I think, don't they? But
and there's a slightly larger Freedom Class as well, which is very similar.
Right. Well, post the amplification, they actually moved the gym. So the gym used to be in the forward section, just above the bridge, and they realized that they could squeeze a bunch more cabins into there. So they actually moved the gym. I think it's now on deck 12. They've moved it to the back of the ship in kind of a service area. It's kind of weird to get to the gym, and the gym is not big, but it means that the cabins that are forward are newer cabins. The interiors are newer. They were done in 2019. So you get like a kind of Corian desk surface as opposed to a wooden desk surface. The cupboards have got like proper handles on them as opposed to just holes in the wood. And they're just a bit newer, and the bathrooms are a bit newer too. And what I realized, because last time I went, I was on a guaranteed cabin, and I think I was on deck 8 or 9, like just above the main promenade. And they have these late night parties on Royal Caribbean, these kind of street parties on the Royal Promenade, and they have a live band, and we could actually hear it. Like, we could hear it from inside our cabin because we went to bed early with the kids. And so by being in this forward section, you're actually behind the solarium or the adults pool, and you're right forward just above, and there's 2 decks of this, deck 11 and deck 12 of these new cabins. And that's where I recommend, if you want an inside cabin, as my mum had, deck 11 is the place to be. These are newer design cabins. They're a little bit bigger. They're 160 feet as opposed to 138 or 150 feet. And then above them are these kind of panoramic cabins, which are just fantastic. And if you book the right one, as we did, you actually get like 6 panoramic windows overlooking the bow of the ship and the bridge. And it's just stunning there. And so that they don't open, there's no balcony, but the view, it's probably the best cruise cabin I've ever stayed in. And so highly recommended. 1864 is the cabin. There's literally only one of them, which is on a corner. And so you get this incredible panoramic view. Whereas if you choose the room next door, you get one of those windows for the same price versus 6 windows.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's an anomaly. They have similar rooms downstairs that have a bunk bed room as well. And because it has a little bunk bed room, it's called a suite. And so they sell that for 3 times the price. Very interesting.
Oh, my goodness.
So I always recommend these anomaly cabins. There's only 1 or 2 of them on the ship invariably. But if you find them, they're actually priced really well, and you can have a much better time of it. So that's my advice on these classes of ship. Don't be in the main atrium section. Be forward, because you can, you get a bit of peace and quiet and shut yourself away from all the action. But I have to say, it was probably, we've done it now 6 times. This is probably the best time we've had on board the Navigator of the Seas.
Nice. Was that because of the extended family coming along? Is it a good family ship?
It's a brilliant family ship. I mean, we did one of these long weekends, so it's Friday through Monday. So it's only 3 nights. And the problem with these is they can be a little bit like booze cruises. A lot of people come and they get the drinks package and they just go for it. And I did get a little scared at one point. There were a couple of fights. I witnessed some screaming on the stairwell near the windjammer, and the security swooped in and managed to break it up. But people just get a little bit too merry, I suppose you could say. For the size of the ship, 138,000 tons, and you can have up to 3,600 people, I think, on that ship. It's a lot of people. Even on a ship as busy as these types of ships, you can always find somewhere quiet. And I, the forward part of the ship near the mini golf, or the rear of the ship near the water slides, are much quieter than the middle of the ship, where the pools are, and where that whole kind of middle section, central section of the ship is where all the action happens. Yeah. And so you can always find a quiet place to land.
That's something interesting, because when you mentioned the promenade before, anyone who hasn't been on these ships might have thought you meant the promenade deck, but it's actually the Royal Promenade, which is sort of the central hub of the ship, where there's shops and bars and lounges and all sorts of things that sort of spill out into almost like a streetscape, which the Voyager Class was instrumental in creating. In fact, that was the first class of ships to have it.
Yes.
And that's where you said to try and avoid because of the noise.
That's right, because it's an enclosed space. It's not like on the Oasis class or the Icon class, where that kind of central promenade is open to the elements and the sound can escape. This is enclosed. I think it goes up to like deck 8 or 9, is like a ceiling. And so any sound is going to get trapped in there and bleed through into the rooms. And you can get rooms that face the promenade. So in the same way that you would get those on the Oasis class facing Central Park, here they'd be facing the Royal Promenade. And again, these are inside cabins, basically, 150 square feet, but they have a window and a view. Why you would want to face people just across the way and get change, so people just keep their curtains closed. Well, if you're keeping your curtains closed, you might as well be in a regular inside cabin and pay less. So some of these interior cabins on this class of ship, they've converted to having these virtual balconies, which is basically a huge kind of 80-inch TV turned on its side with a superimposed balustrade on it and a high-definition view out the side of the ship. And so you can turn it off and you can close the curtains around it. It actually takes, because it's like a box, it takes up a bit of extra room. So you find that these only really go in the 2-berth cabins. The 4-berth cabins, where they need a big sofa to pull out or drop down, they tend not to offer them. But I just think that going on the older ships that have been revolutionized, I mean, we've said before on this show that the Navigator and the Voyager Class has some of the best water slides at sea, even better than the newer ships. You have the Blaster and the Riptide. The Blaster is the one where you sit in a kind of rubber ring with somebody else, or like a little boat with somebody else. And it's I
was actually going to ask
fantastic.
you, Anthony, because there's been this, obviously, the news recently about the water slide fiasco on board Icon of the Seas.
Yes.
Being with the same company, did you see any restrictions or changes to the water slide operation, or is it just business as usual?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I didn't tell my kids about this incident on the water slide on Icon of the Seas. The incident, for those that don't know, is that one of the clear tube sections of the water slide, it failed, and a man was going through, and he didn't fall out. It was at great heights. He didn't fall out. He carried on, but it shattered, and so the fragments of, I presume it's a type of plastic, cut him up, cut his legs and his arms, his hands.
It's lucky he didn't fall, though.
It's very lucky he didn't fall. And so obviously they were able to, because they're on radios and they don't let more than one person at a time down. So there's never going to be a situation where you have like a whole crowd of people who are filling up and all start falling through the hole. The video of that sequence that was filmed from a couple of angles was very harrowing to watch. But in answer to your question, the Riptide, the one that my daughter likes to do best because she's not really tall enough for the Blaster on her own, was closed completely for our voyage. And,
really?
Yeah. And
unrelated, or?
Well, it said it was closed for chlorination or deep clean chlorination or something.
Sure.
And I asked when it was going to be open. They said, well, we'll try and get it reopened on this cruise, but it doesn't look like it. And I asked at guest services, and they said the same. And so it was tough for my daughter because, she loves that water slide, and my son loves the mini golf, and that's kind of their two favorite activities,
their favorite things
on board. So I ended up spending a little bit more in the arcades to make up for it,
So like you are, our audience will know your passion for Cunard, your love of celebrity. Royal Caribbean, obviously, a very different kind of product. What do you do on board a Royal Caribbean ship? Like, how do you pass the time?
Well, as I said earlier, I wouldn't travel on it if I wasn't taking the kids, because it doesn't have great free food offerings. Like Celebrity, all of the free food offerings are so good. The standard is so high. And it's obviously much more for adults, and you can have romance, and it's just more chic and more fitting for the grown-ups. So, we kind of enjoy watching the kids having a good time. So we just chill out, the pina coladas, which I should mention actually, because, you can judge a hotel by its club sandwich, and you can judge a bar by its pina colada, in my opinion, like a man from the 80s here. And and inconsistency of the pina coladas depending on which bartender you got or which bar you went to was very interesting. Do you know how much they're charging for that drink now? Considering they don't even put an umbrella in it, and sometimes they serve it in the wrong glass, which is very annoying.
Well, the last time I was on Royal Caribbean, you got the glass to keep as part of buying the pina colada. So
right, well,
it's been a while.
This thing was just short of $16 plus the
what? Oh my god!
Which is
That's
a
crazy.
lot of money for a drink. And you
can see why people go for the drinks package when the drink prices individually are so high.
Sure. I just, I can drink maybe one drink a day. That's kind of my limit. We're not big drinkers. And so the pina colada was just so inconsistent. And so I bought my first one from one bar. And then as I was walking back with it, I went up to another bar and I said, "Is this how you serve pina colada? Like, is there not supposed to be some fruit in it?" The guy looked at me and he went, "There are no pineapples on the ship." And I was like,
"They're banned the pineapples."
Because I just ate a whole load of pineapple for breakfast this morning, or it was actually at lunch because it was the first day.
You ate them out of pineapple.
I ate them out of pineapple, but so that wasn't quite so true.
Dear.
But he then did throw a glacier cherry on the top for me, just to kind of
generous.
Very generous. By day 2, they started to get a bit better. Like we were getting a slice of pineapple on the side, and we were getting the correct.
They
glass.
found some pineapples then.
Oh, they did. Yeah, I don't know where they've got them from, Ensenada or something maybe, but
maybe they flew them in.
But it's just when you're charging that much for a drink, there needs to be
100%.
some consistency. I do think that's important. So that was just something to point out.
Oh, back in the day, we were on Enchantment over the Seas, which is a Vision Class. The unique one in the Vision Class in that she was lengthened. They had this big plan to, as they were building the Voyager Class, and they thought, well, we'll lengthen the Vision Class ships. And the first one to go through that process was Enchantment, and for whatever reason, they never did any of the others. Although I personally really liked Enchantment, and I thought that the new bit of the ship, it was quite nice. The amenities that were included, there was extra space in the casino for an extra bar, I think it was, and then the top deck there was more pool space and more cabins. But one of the things I really liked about my experiences on Royal Caribbean is the activation of the ship as well. I found that they used the space on board really well to bring activities to a large audience. So, for example, the Vision Class is quite well known for its central atrium core that goes down the center of the ship with the glass on top, and then the surrounding decks. And they would have like the art auction on the lowest level, but people would sit on the upper levels and they would like yell up and interact with people on the different levels and made it fun. It wasn't just a lot number 42 kind of thing. It was really about trying to engage the passengers on board who weren't necessarily going to bid, but were there just to see the spectacle. Is it still like that? Are they still good at bringing the entertainment to you?
They were doing loads of stuff on the pool deck, organized things, kind of dances and sexiest man competition and all of this stuff. And it kind of reminded me of like the Catskills or in England holiday camps that we used to have.
Sure.
This idea that this very social thing can happen and it breaks down barriers. There was, it's also really nice to be able to just mix with all different people and people watch. And obviously in the US, the politics is so divisive and, you're either in this camp or you're in that camp. People like to compartmentalize. And there's none of that on the ship. People leave their politics behind and everybody kind of gets on with each other. And so it was, I just love the humanity aspect of it. I enjoy the people watching. I love chatting to people and kind of just getting people's, the feels and the vibes, as well as obviously engaging with the crew. And the crew were fantastic. They love that ship and they really do deliver such a great, they have such a great intentional way of serving you. And
I suppose she's 23 years old now, so you've probably got quite a lot of crew who've been with her for a while. They know the ship, it's their ship. You get that kind of ambience on board that, to your point before, like the older ships just have a certain something when it comes to the way that the crew operate versus the newer ships where they're still trying to understand how the service is going to be offered on board.
And also, Royal Caribbean they do entertainment better than most of the other lines. I do feel that. And so the first night was, I've seen these shows so many times now because we've been on the ship, and I would like them to have changed it up a little bit. They did this Showgirls show on the first night, which is great. It's showgirls across the ages and from the Moulin Rouge through to the kind of MGM musical style. It's great. My kids love it. They're mesmerized by it. But one thing I did notice is that people always talk about cutbacks, and there's no kind of live musicians taking part in these production shows anymore. Celebrity does that, but on Royal Caribbean, they're all performing to tapes. And the tapes are beautifully orchestrated. You wouldn't know it wasn't a live band. They're really well recorded and produced. So they've scaled back musicians, certainly, on a lot of the lines because they can. They can get away with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. At some point, and I do feel like the more we do this show, the more people that leave messages on the YouTube channel or send us comments on, Spotify or Apple, there's quite a lot of feedback, and it seems to be growing, that people are getting to a point where enough's enough on the cutbacks. And I do think that's not just cruising. I think it's everywhere. It's all transportation and travel, but it's just in everyday life where everything's being pushed back to the consumer to pay more, to do more, to log into your app, to do it yourself. There's going to come a point where people are going to say, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing this anymore. And the few lines that still do have live musicians and still do have complimentary food and still do have, good quality included fare, they'll be the ones who will benefit because there's only so much we're willing to take, I think.
And people have to make that opinion known. I mean, that's the other important
100%.
thing, is that you can't just not mention it. You really have to communicate that to the line, because remember, these lines, they're not doing it because they don't have the money. They're doing it because their shareholders demand greater and greater dividends.
Because they can have more money.
More money, yes. And so Royal Caribbean recently announced record profits, and yes, they're building record number of ships and investing more in new ships, but a new ship, especially Star of the Seas, these new Icon class ships, they're carrying 7,000-8,000 people, and that is all revenue. We had no shortage of entertainment. Every night was dinner and a show, and we got a fantastic table. We had a 5 o'clock dinner sitting, and it was just a bit too early, really. My kids are getting a bit older, and so we needed a table for 6. So I eventually found the right person to ask, because I was standing in the wrong line for ages trying to get this dealt with in the dining room. Eventually they moved me to a table as you came into the dining room. It was right there, surrounded by these kind of grills. And I have to say, it turned out to be a fantastic table. And it was actually because the dining room it's the most stunning dining room.
This is the fancy dining room, as your son calls it.
The fancy dining room, as my son calls it. And it's on 3 levels, and we were on the top level on deck 5. And we had a wonderful service team, and the food, Royal Caribbean food is fine. It's just fine. It's food.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how is it?
It's not a kind of culinary experience. It's just fine. And so, we had no complaints about the food at all. But it's not going to blow your mind.
Do the crew still sing at dinner? Because on Enchantment of the Seas, they every night they did this song on the staircase.
There were songs on the staircase. I think 2 out of the 3 nights we got a performance. And then, of course, all of the staff and all of the crew and all the chefs, and they all come out and do the parade, and we all wave the napkins. And I love the rituals of cruising, that they keep that stuff alive. So, it's just great. But I wanted to say that in addition to the production shows, they also have the ice rink at Studio B on board so many of the Royal Caribbean ships. And, seeing an ice skating show, how often do you get to even see that on land? And it kind of occurred to me that the entertainment that we are able to access for included in our cruise fare at sea, you just would never go to on land. You'd never go to a Showgirls production show. You'd never go. I mean, the final show we had was fantastic. It was a ballroom show where the fantastic ballroom dancers. There's always a couple invariably from Ukraine or Russia or somewhere. Fantastic dancers, and they were integrating with the production dancers, and they did this brilliant final show on the last night. We had a very good balance, even though it was a 3-night cruise. We had a very good balance of they pack in like a week's worth of entertainment into a long weekend, which is great. So no, I mean, I highly recommend these short cruises, especially as tasters, and we ended up booking another one for next year on the same ship. I said to the kids, are you sure you're not going to be bored of this ship and seeing the same shows? Oh, no, we love it. So we've already booked again to go back early next year.
Where did the cruise go?
I've no idea. People ask me this. Where does the cruise... Oh, I say I'm going on a cruise. Oh, where are you going? I have no idea. We never get off the ship. Like, what difference? We're there for the boat. It went to Ensenada, but like I say, Ensenada...
Did it sail north or south? I mean, like...
I think it sailed south. But here's the thing, Ensenada and a lot of these stops now, they are really tourist destinations. They're not kind of working ports. They're not locals aren't really living there, and in some cases, go on.
I'm going to log into Cruise Maps.
Oh yeah,
and I'm going to find your voyage.
Oh yeah,
and I'm going to stick it up on the screen.
And you're going to.
And if you want a memento of it, you can use my promo code to get yourself a map, Anthony. Because you should at least remember where you went.
Yeah, no, I definitely went to Ensenada, but like I say, we don't get off. A lot of the ports now, including some of these private islands like Coco Cay, for example, they are owned and run and operated by the cruise line. Sure. And so to me, it kind of defeats the object of going cruising and traveling to go far off places and see historic locations when this is like a man-made island that has been created for the cruise line to sell more drinks. It's very interesting. I mean, I sound like a cynical old bitch sometimes, and I don't mean to be. In fact, my mum said while we were on this cruise, I was like, are you enjoying the Expert Cruise Show? She said, yeah, you do come over sometimes as being a really cheap. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I pay for everybody, like you didn't pay for your cruise or your flight over. Like, I pay for everybody. I'm not cheap. And she was like, yeah, but the way you talk about saving money all the time, it's like you're, but
you've told me this many times before. Yeah. It's like a competition for you almost, that you want to see how you can get the best value, because then you can share that with the audience.
But also then
because I know you do like to do your research and hunt down the deals and work out the different hacks.
It's been like this ever since I was a kid. It's like, and I was actually telling my mum in my defense that when I was a kid and I used to edit videos, which I'm still doing now, ironically, and I bought via mail order a piece of equipment from the back of a magazine. I mean, this is in the 80s. It was called a Genlock, and it was a device that enabled you to superimpose graphics over the video, right? Because we had no computers.
Oh, yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day. And the company sent me this device, and it was expensive. I'd saved up. It was like, I think it was like £180 in the 80s. So it's very expensive. And it arrived, and instead of them sending me the external box, they sent me like an internal card, a PCI card that would slot into a computer that I didn't have. And I was like, oh, they've sent me the wrong one. I'll send it back. And I sent it back for them to replace it, and I never heard from them again. So as a kid, I lost like £180 through a mail order thing. And I swear to you, that was the day when I became like a consumer expert. Like I was like, from that point onwards, I'm never getting ripped off. Like I want to make sure that you always get what you pay for and a little bit more.
Yeah. And so have you noticed that a whole heap of people on the internet are now changing their profile pictures to a picture of Clippy? Have you heard about this?
No. What is this?
It's a peaceful movement against corporations and governments screwing over the consumers. And I'm now starting to see, so I was like, why are all these comments on my channel got pictures of Clippy? And I did a little bit of research, and I can't remember his name. It's a YouTuber who's got a very big following, who's into consumer affairs. And he made this sort of video saying, like, if you if you're unhappy with the way that companies and corporations are treating you as a consumer, change your profile picture to a Clippy. And they're everywhere now. It's crazy.
That's
and
so
this kind of links back to what we were saying, like what you were just saying about this company's not doing what they said they were going to do. And what we were saying before about too many cuts. All of this is that the power is with the consumer.
Yes.
All of this is with us, but we've forgotten that we have these consumer rights. And so we need to make it heard. You need to tell your cruise line if you're not satisfied. If you book through a travel agent, you need to tell them the feedback, good and bad.
Yes.
Don't go on a rant on Twitter as your first point of call. Tell people who can actually make a difference.
I mean, do you remember me saying before I went on that Princess cruise a couple of years ago, like literally the week before they announced that the pizza was no longer included and, various changes had been made, and I was like, we should have gone last week. But if they brought about all of these changes on the same day, people would be up in arms. But they do it bit by bit, drip by drip, a little bit like Cunard getting rid of the free room service. I mean, and I remember Carol and Paul, when they went on Queen Anne for the first time, in their video, they said at the moment it's free, but they might start charging for it in the future. And, but I've heard some people say, well, they're going to start charging more in the dining room. I mean, that's the other thing. If you want a lobster tail any night of the week, you have to pay an extra $15 for it. If you want, here's the other thing I noticed on the Royal Caribbean menu, that if you wanted a Chops Grill steak, so you could either have like the regular steak, which is, I guess, just a cheaper cut of meat. But if you want the kind of grade A Chops Grill steak, you can actually, instead of having to pay $50, $60 a head to go to Chops Grill on the Voyager Class, you can have the same steak brought to you in your dining room, at your dining room table, and for only $20. So actually, that's not a bad idea. Let's have a Chops Grill evening without going to Chops Grill.
So what makes a Chops Grill steak better than a main dining room steak?
Well, I don't know if you know much about USDA food in the US, but it's the way that they grade their meat is actually different to the UK and probably Australia where you are, in that they do sell crap meat and it's just kind of considered to be normal meat, but the really good quality stuff is a lot more expensive. And again, it's all...
So you're paying for a good quality steak.
You're paying for a good quality steak. I have to say, I didn't really have a problem with the regular steak in the dining room. But, the standard of meat product across the board in the US is pretty poor. And that goes...
Did you ever watch Fawlty Towers back in the day?
Oh, yes. I loved that show.
Of course,
kidding?
Of course, they always had so many complaints about the meal service, right?
Yes.
And there's this one particular episode where Basil's getting himself particularly wound up, and he says, why don't we just feed you all from a trough and garnish it with a couple of dead dogs? And I think to myself sometimes, if they continue to make cuts, and that's what they're going to end up doing, like one day you're going to literally walk into the dining room and it's going to be Fawlty Towers.
Right.
But it's a shame, really.
But they're also...
Because, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Go
but when I'm doing this research for my Substack into like what it was like on Royal Caribbean when it first opened, and like people could go on board the Song of Norway and the Sun Viking and the Nordic Prince, and they were going on these cruises, which were these are small ships, 27,000 gross tons, I think it was, but what you were getting like this service that you couldn't really access easily on land, and the food quality that you couldn't access easily on land. That's still the case, but they mustn't reduce it so much that you go, hang on a minute, I'd have a better time just doing a local vacation to, whatever resort city you want to go to. I
still think that the value really is there at sea, but I think part of the reason for the cutbacks in the main dining room is to encourage them to upsell you the speciality dining. And,
I don't like that.
I don't like it too, and I don't fall for it anymore, but... hooked seafood does look rather fantastic. They have Jamie's Italian on board. They have Johnny Rockets on board. They have the Chops Grill. And
Johnny Rockets is good. Jamie's
they were
was
doing
good.
a big sell, I have to say. Like on the first couple of days, they are doing a big sell. They even tricked us at one point. We walked into the Windjammer for the first time for that first boarding lunch, And there was a guy who I could tell was working for Chop's Grill, and he was like, do you guys want a table? Do you guys want a table? And I was like, no, we're fine. We're going to the buffet. Yeah, no, I can get you a table, though. I can get you the table. And I was like, wow, he is actually using kind of sales technique to try and
That's
trick
very
us.
Venice.
To try and trick us into speciality dining. He picked on the wrong family.
Because when you walk down the street in Venice, everyone's trying to pull you into their restaurant, even if I just left a restaurant.
Yeah,
they're very good at it. So,
but I overall, I don't want to go on the Icon class or the Oasis class. I've seen enough videos. I've watched enough vloggers on those ships. Maybe I will.
Now, I've got a friend
Yes.
who's just come back from a family holiday on the Wonder of the Seas, and they're absolutely raving about it.
And that's the one that just got refurbished, didn't it?
Yeah, it was the newest of the Oasis class, the Wonder. And just, they went on behind-the-scenes tours, the amount of, I think they were on board for a week, and I was talking to him just the other day and saying, you can't do everything that ship has to offer in that period of time. People often say that to me because, I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to ocean liners and stuff. Would you like to go? I think yes, just for the experience, to see what it actually is like to be on the world's biggest cruise ship would be absolutely fascinating.
100%.
And even down to, the one thing I really do like about Royal Caribbean's design is that all of their ships, even the big ones, they look like ships on the outside, particularly on a broadside view or a bow view.
Yes.
They've got the nice raked bow. They've got clean lines. Even though there's lots of balconies, they look like ships.
Yes.
And there's something about them that's just appealing. What I really loved about the few Royal Caribbean experiences that we've had, and particularly, Enchantment's the one I keep going back to because that's our best one of our best cruises. The enthusiasm and engagement from the crew. When you think about that main dining experience, there was My Fair Lady Dining Room is what it was called on Enchantment. And we had this maitre d' who was just so engaged with everybody. He'd just pop up next to you. You wouldn't see him there.
Yeah.
He had a face that looked a little bit like Rowan Atkinson, so he used to make these little Mr. Bean comments. And then he'd come around to do the water service, but he was entertaining everybody. And it was so funny because he would be so busy and talking to us and trying to make us feel like we wanted to have a laugh or whatever, that by the time he'd finished pouring the water, he'd leave and there'd be these little piles of ice on the carpet because he'd missed the glass so many times.
Oh my God.
And it was just this weird situation where if you were on a Cunard ship or on a celebrity ship and that was happening, you'd be like, what is going on? But because it was there and because everyone was there for fun and it was a 5-night cruise and he was energetic and the waiters were all
but that's as
going
it
along
should
with
be. It really is.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, we had some great waiters. I always recommend to take the main dining room when you can because I do find the buffet to be very unhygienic. I'll just tell you very quickly, I was in line for some watermelon. And the woman in front of me, there was 4 slices left of the watermelon. She took 2 of them. She already had a plate piled high with food, with main course. So I don't know where that watermelon was going to go. She put the 2 slices on. Then she goes for the other 2, the final 2, last one's left, drops one on the surface between the... And then what did she do with that one? She didn't take it for herself or put it in the trash. She put it back. And I was like, oh no, I've got to keep an eye on that, right? So, and then she took the other one. So there was 1 piece left. And I was like, man, this is what
Top
can
tip
happen.
though, if you're going to a buffet, always search for something below the top line.
There is that. Or don't go to the buffet because this is my other lesson, really just from a hygiene perspective, is that whilst the buffets are great and the Royal Caribbean buffet is fantastic, breakfast in the main dining room is so good. It really is. And dinner in the main dining room is so good. Lunch, I can understand. They have a kind of Mexican service by the pool, which is great because everything is is themed for party, and to have nachos or tacos or something is super fun. But it's just the hygiene thing in a buffet. It's just quite difficult to manage sometimes.
Yeah. Just before we dock this ship,
yes,
because we are at time now, but can I tell you my funniest windjammer story?
Washy, let's hear it.
So we were entering into the windjammer late breakfast, right? And it's sort of set up like this where the central pit's in the middle, but you can come in from both port and starboard side. And they'd cordoned off the starboard side so that they could set that up for lunch. And we were getting the breakfast food that we wanted, but the person in front of us was doing what you were saying before. The plate was piled high, just every item they can think of. And as they got to the end of the run, they just finished setting up lunch. They opened up the little divider, and without, like, this person must have been in a trance or something, because they just continued around and started piling up all the lunch food on top of their plate, and there's this like mountain of food sitting there by the time they went back to their table. So it was like eggs and waffles and like
maybe they thought it was one of those buffets where you're only allowed one plate.
Only allowed one. You can refill, right? People. You can refill.
maybe that was the confusion. Yeah, it's very interesting. Buffet etiquette and the kind of manners generally, is something that is definitely on the way out. And again, there's no dress code imposed really for dinner. People are just doing whatever they like. But I don't know. I just think that Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, they are definitely up there. I'll take those any day. And whenever I had to go to guest services and like we lost a couple of things, they were able to find them. They were so kind. And I even was late bringing my pool towels back. And I saw on the app I got charged $50 for 2 pool towels. And I was like, wow. No! And eventually I kind of took photos of me returning the pool towels, even though nobody was at the kiosk anymore. And I went down to guest services and they refunded me, no questions asked. Yeah. And I just think that the staff are super kind, super nice. And we had like a little smell issue in the cabinet in the bedroom, and they offered a future cruise discount to make up for that. And I didn't even ask for it. They were offering it. So
yeah, they switched on.
Yeah,
we got upgraded from an inside room to a window ocean view room when we did our first ever Royal Caribbean cruise, all the way back in like 2007 or something. And it's just such a nice thing to do. Like, never traveled with them before. Board the ship, get there, find out that it's been upgraded. There's a towel animal every day. We had a monkey, I think it was, a bat, and a stingray on the bed. Like, it's just nice stuff. But the RMS Royal Caribbean has arrived in the port. We have to call it a day for this week. But good to see that you had such a wonderful time. And if you've had a Royal Caribbean experience of your own, don't forget to let us know in the comments below, because we'd love to hear from you. A couple of episodes back, we actually did an episode where we read out some of the comments, because we had so many wonderful people commenting on these shows, sharing their cruise experience. We'd love to hear what you think of Royal Caribbean as well.
And we'll do it again next week at the same time, as usual. So share the show, please, and comment down below, as Chris says. Check out Chris's Substack, which is gaining increasing popularity. And the link for that is also down in the description. And we'll catch you next week when we'll take you to sea another time. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you. Bon voyage.